We are part of the Progressive Radio Network, such as it is. How healthy is it, and where is it going? Well, we've got a lot to say about that, and so does Nicole Hemmer. She's a writer for U.S. News and World Report, also a professor at the University of Miami, and a visiting scholar at the U.S. Studies Center at the University of Sydney. Wearing those many hats, she joins us on our news line this morning. Hey, Nicole, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me.
So you've taken a look at the state of progressive talk radio in this country today. How is it?
Well, it's certainly doing better than it was, say, a decade ago when it was more or less non-existent.
I was just going to say it didn't exist a decade ago, right?
Right. Yeah. So, and it's doing better than, say, conservative talk radio was doing in its infancy. It took a good 25, 30 years for conservative talk radio to become what it became when Rush Limbaugh launched his nationally syndicated show. So in that way, it's ahead of the curve. But by and large, it seems to me unlikely that even as healthy as it is now, and even as well as you're doing at the moment, that it's ever going to be as influential or be as central to progressive politics as conservative talk radio is to conservative politics.
Well, I agree with you, and then the question always is, why not? And what I hear is that, number one, liberals just don't know how to do talk radio, or number two, that talk radio is just a medium that is made for angry white males, most of whom are conservative, and not for, rational thinking, questioning people who most of whom are liberals. What's your take? Why?
Yeah, I don't actually find those arguments terribly persuasive. I think that there are a number of things going on, but I do think that two of them are most significant. And the first is that, to my mind, progressives don't have that same critique of all of the other media that sends them searching for media that reflect progressive ideas, that reflect progressive politics, right? They have a much stronger media or a much more varied media diet and don't have that sort of dismissal of non-progressive media as biased media. And that's something that...
If I can just jump in other words, they don't need that... one place where they can go and never hear anything they disagree with, right?
Well, that's right. And there's also, they just don't see the media world in black and white, right? It's either conservative media or liberal media.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then I think that the second thing is that traditionally the liberal base has been centered not in media but in organizations. And that's something that has given the liberal base a lot of strength within the Democratic Party because organizations are centered around interests rather than the ideology. But it means that it doesn't have that same media center that the conservative movement has.
Well, the other thing we hear is, and I've heard this my entire career, right? What the left needs is what we're all waiting for. We're waiting for the second coming, right? We're waiting for the Rush Limbaugh of the left. I can't tell you how many times I have heard that, that vision or that dream. Do you think that's what progressive talk radio needs?
Well, I think that's what progressives think that they want. They see that the power and influence that Limbaugh has. In 2009, there was a survey that was taken that asked who led the Republican Party, and Rush Limbaugh was the top person. Yeah. And they hunger for that because they see him and his ilk moving the Republican Party to the right, and they would love to see the Democratic Party move to the left in the same way. But I actually don't think that's what progressives need, and I ultimately don't think it's what they want. If you think about how much time was lost in the 2012 election to the Sandra Fluck controversy, and how much damage that the Republican Party took from some over-the-top statements, I don't know that we want our media personalities, particularly ones who are also trying to entertain, to be the voice of our politics and to sort of be the face of the movement. I think that we progressives want a broader base than that.
Nicole Hemmer is our guest. She's a writer for U.S. News and World Report. Caught our attention because she recently her recent article on U.S. News and World Report called "Liberals Should Give Up the Dream of a Lefty Limbaugh." Does Rush have the clout that he once had, Nicole, anymore?
That's a great question. I think that he still is quite influential. I know it seemed like in 2012, as sponsors were running away, that he was losing that influence, but note that his sponsors came right back. There still is a need, I think, within
You don't hear about him as much, though, anymore. He does. I didn't see him, quoted on TV or clips of him on TV as much anymore.
Yeah, I wonder if that is in part just because of the political news cycle. During elections, he seems to be more front and center.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly possible that he's less influential, but I certainly think within the base he's still quite influential and still has quite an impact.
But to me, the bigger question is about the future, not just the future of progressive talk radio, but the future of radio. I mean, radio is changing, right, as a medium. Is talk radio going to continue to be the phenomenon? Talk radio, at least isolated as talk radio, is that going to continue to be the powerhouse that it once was?
This is a great question because it's unclear, right? We don't have a crystal ball to see this. There are some signs that it will still continue to be quite strong. I mean, if you look at somebody like Limbaugh, who a few years ago signed an 8-year contract for $400 million, certainly investors see him and his program as something that they want to continue to invest in, that's going to continue on. But, of course, as you know, the technological changes are changing the way that this works. I mean, I think that he still remains quite popular, and conservative talk radio hosts remain quite popular on Internet talk as well. So people listening to them over their computers as opposed to their car radios. And I think that there's a habit of listening that will continue on. The question is how much that will be crowded out by other media.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, at least our experience is, you cannot just depend on the radio alone anymore, right? It's got to be the radio plus the social media, right? Plus Twitter, plus Facebook, plus we are simulcast on Free Speech TV. Plus we have our video stream worldwide, right, on Talker TV. It's got to be all of those platforms if I think if you really want to get the message out today.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you can't imagine a newspaper or magazine being influential today if it didn't have an online platform and an innovative online platform. So radio, of course, has to do the exact same.
Right. So do you see out there, and I'm sure you looked at this, in terms of a lefty Limbaugh, did you see any bright new stars on the horizon that we ought to know about somewhere out there, not yet nationally syndicated, who might be the next big name on progressive talk radio? We want to know who the competition is.
Yeah, come on. What do we have to take out?
Yeah, not only have I sort of scoured the airwaves, but Politico has recently scoured them as well and talked to a lot of big names. And
Mackenzie Wenger did a great piece on Thanksgiving Day, was the front page story on Politico. Mm-hmm.
Precisely, yes. And neither Mackenzie nor I see that next big Rush Limbaugh, but I actually think that's okay. That what progressives have now, it will continue to grow. It will continue to, work in its ways. I don't know that there's a progressive Rush Limbaugh on the horizon, but I also don't think that that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you heard about John Fugelsang?
No, I haven't.
Oh, he filled in for me last week. We're worried about him. We'll never let him fill in again. He was so good. Yeah, he was so good last week.
Yeah, got to keep an eye on the competition.
I'll tell you because I just want a final point here that having first chance to talk to you, if you read the Mackenzie Wenger article in Politico, she did talk to me, and I was quoted in the article as saying, I think the future of progressive talk radio does not depend on finding the next Rush Limbaugh. It depends on getting progressive investors, people with money, to do what the conservatives did and to buy TV stations and to build networks and to have our own ownership and control of enough stations that we can have a powerful force for progressive talk radio in this country. And until progressives and liberals do that, they're always going to be, a poor second place to conservative talk radio.